Hi everyone, Sandman here. This video is brought to you by a donation from Chris, and here's what he has to say. Hello Sandman, my name is Chris, and although I'm somewhat new to MGTOW, I've been living the MGTOW lifestyle for some time now. What puzzles me about our opponents are those who should be supportive, especially the militant feminists. I'm talking about the a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle types, that are essentially women going their own way. And of course many of those are lesbians. I do not understand why they would be critical of the MGTOW movement, which is basically what they've been demanding for decades. What are your thoughts? Thank you, sir. All the best. Well, Chris, thanks for your donation as well as your topic request. Feminists and women in general tell society what they want from us men, but when we actually give it to them exactly the way that they want it, they often get angry. You've probably noticed this, and it doesn't make any rational sense to you. Because when a man asks a woman for something very specific, and she basically gives it to him, it doesn't actually mean that he wanted something different. When feminists say they want equality, they don't really mean equality at all. What they really want is a man to listen to their request and challenge them. They're looking for an entertaining social struggle between men and women. That's the end goal. So when a woman wants a creepy man to leave her alone and the only good-looking guys to basically contact her in life, that's not exactly what she wants. She still wants the creepy betas to talk to her so she can pretty much put them in the friend zone and use them financially, emotionally, or in other ways. In theory, feminists that say they want equality between men and women should be ecstatic about men going their own way. Finally, a bunch of men that treat women equally and ignore them like women generally ignore men. But unfortunately, they want equality of outcomes and not necessarily equality of responsibility. The only way to have an equality of outcome is to get the men to work harder than they normally would and provide for women. Men have to take the greater amounts of responsibility while providing a larger and larger share of the spoils to women. So now that some men have figured this out and are walking away, the women promoting equality are stuck between a tampon and a hard place. If they tell men, sorry, we don't want you to go because we need you to do more than your fair share and hand over more than half of the riches, or even more to society, then men will see they're being used. But if women say they're for equality and men treat them truly equal, and more men go their own way, then women aren't happy about this either. The feminists and other opponents of MGTOW are not supportive because if they were, then men going their own way would gain social validation from women, and our numbers would continue to grow and grow. Thus, women would have less and less willing parasites to take what they needed from. My thinking is that when a woman says a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle, they're bluffing and putting on their best poker face, hoping that men will fall for the shitty hand that nature has dealt women, and think to themselves that women actually have the better hand. Most women are nothing but gamblers with a bad hand trying to bluff their way into a man's heart so they can extract riches. If the man calls out her lousy hand, then she'll pretty much shame him for it and make him feel bad for calling her bluff. If he insists on calling the bluff that the woman makes, regardless of the shame, they will often get kicked to the curb. That's how it works in relationships. But outside of relationships in our society in general, women are bluffing and saying they don't need men, and you know what men are doing? They're actually calling women's bluff by going their own way. So that's why women are calling MGTOWs women haters and shaming us when in fact all we're interested in is self-preservation. Women will never be supportive of us going our own way because we are their meal ticket. Without us, civilization crumbles and they lose everything. But they can't admit to this because if they did, then we'd really see them for what they truly are, children pretending to be adults. Just because you put on a pair of pants does not make you a man, honey. For the longest time, you weren't even allowed to wear pants, yet now you actually want men in skirts chopping our balls off using the transgendered bathrooms. The only reason there are lesbians living together and working is because women are allowed to enter the workforce and produce enough wealth to support themselves. There really aren't any women going their own way like you insinuated, Chris, because the odds are that women didn't build the homes they live in or set up the companies or government agencies that most of these women work for. Women only go their own way once all the work has been done for them and the assets are in their hands. That's why they don't like MGTOW, because the work and assets stay in the hands of men. They're critical of the MGTOW movement because it's keeping the resources out of their hands. But once again, they can't actually say that because if they did, it would reveal their weak hand and that they actually need men after all. If women weren't allowed into the workforce like was the case before the 20th century, then lesbians would disappear in a heartbeat, because they would all be looking for men to marry to provide for them. They would be more worried about their lifestyles with regards to money instead of their sexuality. Sex would be the last thing on their minds. The lesbian lifestyle is only available to women in the mid to late 20th century. I'm predicting that as more and more men go their own way, build up their own wealth, and enjoy their own lives, it will mean that women will become increasingly impoverished or dependent on debt and the government to keep themselves afloat. Women will always say one thing and mean another because it's part of their socialization. It's also probably part of their biology too because they can't appear to approach everything in life directly. They're always trying to get into our minds using our back doors, and they aren't literal like men are. As men, we can't not afford to be literal because we have to accomplish and achieve various objectives in the real world. As for women, they can't afford not to be indirect and sneaky because if we know what they're up to and where they stand on any given issue, or their true intentions are clear, and something goes wrong, they don't want us actually putting the blame back on them. Because women are physically weaker and the women that were better throughout history manipulating men pass their genes down to future generations. They hate MGTOW because it's the opposite of what they say, and they're frustrated with us because we took them literally instead of just hearing their words as a shit test and then putting them in their place. They're creating two classes of men out there, the weak men that give women everything they want, the manginas. These guys take women's desires literally and want to please women to get sex and love. Then there are the men that go their own way that also take women literally when they actually say they don't need men, so they're saying, fine, if you don't need us, then we're going to leave. Receiving sex and taking all the risks is not enough for a man to stick around anymore. At least men in the past, when they went off to battle and died, their pain and suffering ended relatively quickly, but today a man that's divorced and loses his home, kids, wife, and purpose is far worse off than the man that dies on the battlefield. Love is our battlefield, and women want us to basically take the bait and fight them in a rigged game. Women's strength comes from projecting weakness because it motivates men to step up and get married and take care of them. But now women are increasingly projecting strength, so men are going to go their own way and look for other reasons to live besides protecting women. After all, if women don't need our protection, then why should we still stick around? Women want men to stick around and take care of them and listen to their problems, but simultaneously women want men to think that they don't need us. Feminism has destroyed most Western women with the promise of independence from men. Women need men more than they actually think because they're miserable at their jobs and are increasingly becoming crazy, lonely cat ladies. But they won't admit this so long as it's not socially acceptable to do so. They will admit it at some point as our society becomes increasingly conservative in coming decades. Women will then say that they need men, not because it's the truth, but because it's actually in fashion to say such things. Once they call out for men to help them, then we'll actually see many men answering their calls and coming to help them in the return to the so-called traditional relationship, or neo-traditionalism will make a comeback. Once they call out for men to help them, then we'll probably see many men answering their calls and coming to help them out. And in return, they'll get traditional relationships, and a new form of neo-traditionalism will emerge. Suddenly, women will pretend to care about men in this world, so they can pretty much bring men back to the bargaining table. That's why there's so many tradcons in the men's rights movement, because they're trying to bring men and women back together into a traditional arrangement. That's probably also why the men's rights movement also hates MGTOW 2.0, because it not only informed men about female nature, but told men that there was no way to win. My major issue with men in the men's rights movement is that they can't defend men sufficiently in most cases because they're married and are already white knighting for the women in their lives first. Their attention is scattered and isn't focused on one place. But with MGTOW, we tell it like it is, and we aren't afraid of what other people think, regardless of if they're liberal lunatics or traditional turds. Feminists hate us because we won't fit into a nice box that men are supposed to fit in with regards to gynocentrism. The choice is between being a man that acts like a feminist mangina or a masculine conservative. Women win either way, and those are the only two choices that feminists want to present to men. We choose neither box because we realize that both of them are gynocentric, and you can't win either way. So we simply walk away and take ourselves out of the equation. The problem is there is no equation if men walk away and are not interacting with women. The feminists know this deep down inside but dare not say it, otherwise it might actually spook all the willing slaves that they currently have. So instead they're just attacking men going their own way, calling us gay because we aren't into becoming a woman's slave. Or they're also calling us misogynists, thinking that if we're all labeled as woman haters, we won't be able to get any action from chicks. They want us to be afraid of losing access to that golden vagina. They also hate us because we're actually telling other men about how real things are these days. We're spreading the secrets of the secret Yaya Pants sisterhood and they want us to stop. But they can't acknowledge it directly, otherwise it might actually make more men suspicious of female nature. So instead they're getting men's rights activists and other useful mangina idiots to do their dirty work. But it's backfiring because the men's rights movement has mostly become a place where men learn about the issues that men are facing in our society, and then they simply move on to MGTOW. I get so many people coming to this channel saying that MGTOW is doing a great job being the male version of feminism. But I keep having to correct them by saying that men going their own way believe that men and women should have real equality, while feminists say they want real equality, but what they really want is female superiority. If men going their own way promote true equality, it often works against their agenda with regards to feminism and wanting to be superior. The only way they can be superior is if we play the game and do as they say. They want subjects, and instead we're choosing to exile ourselves. We are leaving the plantation, and if feminists destroy our societies by bringing in large Muslim populations, eventually the men that make a difference will leave to countries where they are appreciated. Liberals in the West often make one state like California an absolute shithole and then simply move to other places like Arizona, Texas, or Nevada and do the same there as well. Men going their own way choose not to play and pretty much run away from women. Instead, we choose to stick around in the shitty liberal cities, building up our resources and making women hate us because they see what they can't have and they're pretty much angry about it. That pisses them off even more. I guess what I'm saying is that feminists want what men have, and if men aren't willing to give it over to them willingly by marrying some ungrateful twat, then they can't get their cat lady claws on our resources. That's like no single man being able to sleep with a really hot chick. Her body just goes to complete waste. Well, it goes to waste if you're a traditionalist. Anyways, that's all I've got to say for today. Thanks again, Chris, for your donation as well as your topic. Don't forget to smash the like button and check out the MGTOW mystery link. As for everyone else out there, please follow me on Twitter or like me on Facebook to get tomorrow's video today. Thanks for taking your daily dose of red pills. And remember, a red pill a day keeps the pussies with bad poker hands away. So enjoy the rest of your day, and cheers.